Is with us, Bloomberg politics contributor, Democratic analyst, and senior democracy fellow with the Center for the Study of the Presidency and Congress, alongside Republican strategist Maura Gillespie. Of course, principal and founder, Blue Stack Strategies. It's great to have you both with us today. And Jeannie, I wonder your thought on this, because as soon as we think we have things figured out, then you go through 15 rounds of voting. We know that the Chip Roys of the world, members of the Freedom Caucus, and some other MAGA-aligned Republicans don't like Mike Johnson. They don't like the idea of the continuing resolution that we're operating under right now. I'm not sure who they want to be the next speaker, but only a couple of them could derail this whole plan. What's going to happen on Friday?
Well, you know, to your point, it only is going to take one more. We already know that Massey is not going to vote for Johnson on the floor. And I was struck by the president's Truth Social, because not only, 29 little words about Mike Johnson, but it came after over 200 words about this big support he got in the election and the mandate he has going into Washington, D.C. That mandate is not reflected in those numbers in Congress. And he has a real problem, as does Mike Johnson, as a result of that. Because, of course, let's not forget, there is no stick they can use against the members of the Freedom Caucus. You cannot primary them from the right. So what he has to offer them is a carrot. And the only carrot I can think of is Mike Johnson's head on a plate. And so for that reason, this is not a done deal. It's better. Sorry for that. It's better than if he didn't endorse, but by no means does this close the deal for Mike Johnson. I think he gets there, but I think it's going to be a little bit tough, because they know that they have all the power, and that's the problem with these numbers in the House.
Maura, I can only imagine what John Boehner is thinking right now as we have this conversation. The fact is, you know what it's like to work in a Republican speaker's office. And I wonder if you see Friday being the traditional rah-rah, bring the family photo op kind of day that you have for a new or a renewed majority in this case, however thin it may be, or if we're going to get bogged down into some heavy drama on the floor on Friday.
Well, my former boss would probably be pretty relieved that this is not his circus to deal with. I think that for those far-right MAGA members of Congress that are already out there saying they're not going to support Mike Johnson, and or making lists of demands in order to get that vote, to give him their vote for speaker, they should probably be concerned about maybe MAGA world turning on them. And I think that that's what the Trump world should be doing. If his message today says, let's get in line, let's get to work, let's not waste this opportunity, then he should be probably pretty upset with those members who are going to vote against Speaker Mike Johnson, because in theory they're voting against the Republican Party and this Republican-led government that they're going to have in a matter of days. So if I were the Trump team, I would start using their megaphones and targeting those members of Congress, saying that they're not willing to get to work. They don't have a plan. They just want to be obstructionists and point the finger. It would be a little hypocritical considering how many of those MAGA world people do that. But I think that that would be the most effective strategy, is to call them out and say that they're not actually looking to get things done. It's easier to complain than it is to lead. And they're refusing to do so by not supporting Speaker Johnson.
Mike Johnson writing on X, in this case, honored and humbled by Donald Trump's support. He says he would work with him to, quote, quickly deliver on your America First agenda. He was writing directly to Donald Trump, Jeannie. As some have suggested, Donald Trump is the real speaker. Will he be the one to decide the agenda? In the opening weeks of this Congress, we've been arguing about whether it should be border or whether it should be the Trump tax cuts. Donald Trump, of course, is going to start his second term with a series of executive actions on the border, Jeannie. So what should happen legislatively?
Yeah, Donald Trump is going to set this agenda. They have been hard at work on this. He has been working on this with his team for 4 years, so he knows exactly what he wants to do. They will start with the border, I believe, because the taxes will be much harder. And just to go back to the Truth Social post, just hours before the endorsement of Mike Johnson, he took to Truth Social, Donald Trump did, to criticize Mike Johnson for not lifting the debt ceiling. And to me, This was a shout out to the MAGA world and a sort of cry for help about his agenda as it pertains to taxes, as it pertains to the budget, because he knows how thorny this is going to be. And the numbers that we have coming into this House are clear. You have about 38 Republicans who will not vote to raise that debt ceiling without spending cuts. And that means a disaster for Donald Trump and Mike Johnson, because they can't get it over the finish line then without Democrats who will want something in return. So read that post. Donald Trump knows this is a pending disaster for him in his first 100 days. That is anger at Mike Johnson for not doing this. Of course, in Mike Johnson's defense, it was an impossible task at the last minute, but he has not forgotten that. And so he endorsed, yes, but I think to me, it's a lukewarm endorsement. What can you do for me? Because you did what I said before.
All right, Maura, what do you think? It's a big love fest right now, but we get divorced right around the time we hit the debt ceiling.
Well, what's funny about the debt ceiling conversation is that that week leading up to it, Donald Trump talked to a reporter and said, you know, Democrats wanted to get rid of the debt ceiling. I'll champion that effort with them. Meanwhile, people in the far right and the MAGA world were complaining about Mike Johnson having worked with Democrats across the aisle to get the first bill done that was going to avoid a government shutdown drama-free. And that got derailed because he was working with Democrats. They were so angry. But yet you hear nothing about people in the Republican flank being upset with Donald Trump for saying that he was going to work and champion the effort of Democrats to eliminate the debt ceiling. So I think it's very interesting. And again, I think that we all could use a bit of objective viewpoints here and take a look at what's happening. Yeah. Mike Johnson certainly has his work cut out for him. But I do think that, you know, the Boehner rule, back when Obama versus Boehner during this conversation of the debt ceiling, it was 1-to-1. So if you're for every dollar spent or every dollar increase in the debt ceiling, a dollar needs to be cut from the budget. So maybe they'll start working towards that goal. But it was not an easy feat back then. I think it'll be even harder to do now.
The Boehner rule, man, as you're bringing us back. I want a cigarette, Maura.